This is the year of wake up and smell the competition. Because Tyson Fury's back, and all you motherfuckers are under attack. Ain't no stopping me now.
I'm gonna make sure he go right out the ring, and I might get on the top of the bucket or the rope and come down with a flying elbow kick.
I'm going to cook him and see how he feels like it. I'm going to see if he's going to get up off the floor. I don't think he's got the bottled minerals, bollocks, whatever you want to call it. He ain't got it. He's an on-top fighter. He's a bully fighter. And when a bully gets bullied, he folds every single time.
What is that song? I believe the Beatles had it. Is all you need is one. Deontay Wilder just needs one shot, and it's game over.
Thank you very much for being a dosser. Thank you.
Fury scores the knockdown in round number 3. 30 seconds remain, and Fury has fought Wilder. He said he would knock him out. He's going for it here in the 3rd round. Wilder is down again. And what was he doing with his tongue right there? He was just He said in the lead-up, I want to taste blood. I believe that's what he was just doing there at the end of 6, tasting Wilder's blood. That was outrageous.
So I'm just laughing because he got beat up so bad.
Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show. We can't say that anymore, Gary. We can't say it's a daily edition of the show anymore. And that's kind of what part of this show is going to be about, is sort of detailing what MCR is doing for the next 2 months, 3 months, however long it's going to be, in terms of not really having combat sports to talk about. But before we get into that, we're also going to break down what is canceled, what is still up in the combat sports world, what we're going to be viewing for the next few months, what's going to be happening for the next few months due to coronavirus. And also, there's still some news out there. Still some fights that happened this last week or two, so we're going to break down that as well and give you guys some content, because I know in this time, in this sort of age, you guys need some escapism, so that's what we're going to be here for. Without further ado, let me get to my amazing co-host today, Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
I am good and well and super. I'm going stir crazy, and cabin fever is in full effect. There is some news to get into, surprisingly. So that's good news. Maybe there's going to be some fights this weekend. I don't know. You know, it's weird as a boxing fan because we don't have an off season. It's not like other sports where there's an off season. So this is like, I started watching boxing when I was like 9 years old. This is the longest I've ever going to have to go without watching fights. So,
and another thing to that, like, boxing is not a unilateral entity. So, like, it can't act that way. Like the NBA can, like the NFL can, etc. Right? Where they can say all out, full season suspended. There's nobody to do that in boxing. So or combat sports, period. So you're going to have some people trying to slip through the cracks to still put on fights. We're going to break down all of that and more. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. And quickly, before we get into all of the news, I think I should just go off bat with what's going to happen with MCR, just because I want to get that out of the way. Most likely, what is happening to MCR for the next month or two, or however long it's going to take, is that this does change. That you guys don't get 3 to 5 shows a week anymore. That this comes to maybe a show a week. And also, the show might be changing because we might not have content to talk about. So expect to see more off-brand content, which isn't a bad thing, but just expect that. Expect to see more political content. Expect to see more musical content. Expect to see more stuff that is outside our pure view of combat sports, because we don't have really any combat sports per se for a while. And just be on the lookout for that. I'm going to try to keep you guys updated as much as possible. Me and Anthony Walker are talking about doing a weekly podcast that's not really about combat sports, to keep you guys entertained. Obviously, politics have been heating up. I know me and Gary have been flirting about that and joking about that, but I'm seriously about to consider it, because we need content for you guys, because I know that the channel needs it, and also you guys as listeners of this show and viewers of the show, you guys want content. So I'm going to try to give you guys that as much as possible. Gary, any sort of state of the union you want to give to the listeners? Because this is also your show. I mean, you've been a big part of the show recently. Any state of the union you want to give in terms of MCR going forward for the next few months?
No, I'm down. Maybe if you guys have suggestions, shoot them over to Matt and see if they're approved.
Quickly, if you have any suggestions, write down on the live chat because it's hard to find that again in post. But after the show, in the comment section, drop down any sort of topics, any sort of show ideas you guys want. We're also going to try to give you guys evergreen content. So, top 10 heavyweights, top 10 welterweights, stuff like that. So it's not too concerned about the moment of news as well. Back to you, Gary.
Yeah, and I'm always down for evergreen topics, top 20 heavyweights of all time, current pound for pound list, current list, whatever, best fights you ever saw, worst fights you ever saw. I'm always down for that. What do you guys want? If you want to listen to me and Matt debate about free market economics, we can do that.
I would have to make that. You guys have no idea what happened, Gary. Gary being a libertarian, me being a Marxist would be amazing. That'd be an amazing debate, just to be honest. But digressing, let's get to some boxing and some combat sports news. And in terms of the coronavirus, it's going to be a little bit interchangeable in terms of what we're talking about, because combat sports is going to be viewed as an entity right now in terms of the commissions. And obviously this isn't like huge news because this already happened, but we didn't have fights this last weekend on ESPN. The top ranked cards for both the Shakur Stevenson fight and the Michael Collin fight were canceled, obviously. I think everyone is fully aware of that. Even though the Michael Collin fight was going to be tomorrow, maybe people weren't aware of that. But the Michael Collin fight not happening tomorrow. Bob Arum on SiriusXM with Akin Barak said that the reason why the fights were canceled is because they could not guarantee coronavirus testing for the fighters. And I'm just going to run through all of the sequence of news when it comes to this topic. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to make a U-turn and will now ban mass gatherings due to the coronavirus pandemic, according to multiple reports. We're getting this by way of Michael Benson. Obviously, this is going to impact boxing over there in the UK drastically. The Nevada State Athletic Commission, per Mike Coppinger, suspended all combat sports events indefinitely due to COVID-19. Canelo Saunders can't be scheduled until ban is lifted. Affects UFC events relocated to the Apex Center March 20th and April 11th, along with PBC shows March 28th and Top Rank April 11th. PBC also right now, but right as the show started, announced they are canceling all shows in March and in April. Stephen Morocco over at MMAfighting.com is sort of reframing what Mike Coppinger is saying, saying that fight permits have been canceled up until March 25th. That's when the next meeting is, where everything will be decided in regards to canceling combat sports events outright. And this is just going to keep moving on. UFC London, in terms of obviously the UFC MMA is being moved. We don't know where it's going to be moved to. Khabib versus Ferguson, the highly anticipated event that's now the 4th or 5th time it's been scheduled, Gary, and the fight has never happened. I'll put that in perspective. That's fucking crazy. It is now being moved because it has no venue as well. Dana White, though, vowing fights will go on unless the country is in total shutdown. Not surprising. Shout out to greedy capitalism. In terms of that UFC London card, Leon Edwards has been moved off of it because he doesn't want to leave the UK. RDA and Gilbert Burns have been pushing for the fight, as well as Colby Covington for Tyron Woodley. Back to boxing. The Better Beef card has now been canceled, and Progress Hooker has been canceled as well. And Canelo Alvarez Blazer Saunders has been postponed till at least June, writes Jake Donovan. And per the CDC, they are recommending that for 8 weeks, no events are scheduled for more than 50 people. Obviously, a massive, massive change from even just a few days ago when we had our last show talking about what was happening. It seems like everything is being shut down to at least June, and if not more. And I really actually recommend, for those that listen to the show for any long period of time, you guys know I'm not a big fan of Joe Rogan, but go check out the Joe Rogan interview we had with, I think his name is Michael Ahlstrom, who is I think he used to work for the CDC, and etc. He's a scientist, doctor. Go check out that interview. I think it's really informative when it comes to this virus. But Gary, fights have all been but canceled, and it seems like promoters are scrambling to try to make events. MTK's golden contract, one of the promoters from MTK is saying that event is still on. In what regards and what capacity, we do not know. But it seems, and obviously Dana White, UFC, is saying that they're going to do whatever it takes to put on events still. A la expect more maybe Saudi Arabia events or UAE events or something along those lines, or maybe fights on, ships in international water, a la The Simpsons. I mean, a lot could happen here. Gary, thoughts on us having no combat sports till June at least? And to be honest, people expect it to be longer.
Man, June is so far away. I mean, we're still, I don't know, is this spring yet, or is we still in winter technically?
I would say this is spring, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we got to go to the summer to get boxing again. I mean, I was hoping this was going to be over in 30 days.
That's not happening.
No. I mean, they already canceled the Canelo fight, and that's a month and a half away. Or postponed the Canelo fight, which is a month and a half away. I had 2 local cards in San Antonio, end of March and early April. Those are both canceled. Hey, did we ever get the Nielsen ratings for that Showbox card? Did it do an astronomically large number?
The Brandon Lee card? No, not yet. We have not
Okay.
back on that.
I want to see what that did, because that's it. Boxing is signed off, but maybe we'll get this golden contract card, which has been okay. It's been decent.
Yeah, it has been.
For what it is. I'm floundering for ideas. I mean, it's starting to stick now. Hooker Prograis is a fight that I was going to go to in Maryland. That's off. Canelo Saunders is postponed.
Canceled all events for the next 2 months.
Like the James Kirkland fight, I wasn't really interested in. Shakur Stevenson was fighting a nobody. Mick Conlon fight, nobody was really interested in that fight. So those fights didn't. It's like, okay, I mean, there's no box, no watch, but I wasn't really marking those on the calendar. Now it's starting to affect the ones that we marked on the calendar. And look, it's the only obvious choice to do, right? You're gonna have an arena of 20,000 people with a virus going around. I mean, you got to cancel it.
And also, I would assume the Nao Inoue fight is also canceled.
They were talking about doing that in a studio, like an ESPN studio. I don't know.
I expect that one to still be canceled.
Or postponed, right? Yeah.
Postpone's the new canceled.
Postpone's the new canceled. I mean, they're gonna have these fights. These fights are gonna go off. I would think. We just don't know. The NBA is talking about pushing their season back 3 months, which means the Brooklyn Nets would get Kevin Durant back. They would just pick it up 3 months from now. And they said Kevin Durant's kind of questionable, but they just weren't going to push it. Well, now you give him 3 more months, he should be fine.
Yeah, that's true. Now let's talk briefly about the angle of should fights be continued. I feel like that's been a major talking point amongst media, amongst fans about this topic. Because we've seen Dana White, we've seen fighters say that we want to fight, or we've seen other fighters say we don't want to fight. We've seen that sort of dynamic play out. I have a few thoughts about it, and then I want to present to you and have your get your take on it. If these fighters were unionized and they had guaranteed base pay, this wouldn't be a topic. Because like other mainstream sports, they'd just be suspended, postponed, they still get paid, and they get their season started when they can. Because these fighters and often mid-card fighters and undercard fighters don't get paid a lot, and they're 1099s. They are completely reliant on getting paid for that fight. They now just lose all their income or potential income. And I understand that plight, like that issue, because it is an issue. There's really no way for any sort of entity to come in and make these promotions pay fighters while they're not fighting. Like those that do it, like Scott Coker and Bellator, he's canceled all of his events. He's paying everyone still. That's amazing. But that's going to be a rarity. That's not going to happen here. So what do we do? Do we push for fights to be in studios with no fans so fighters at least get paid somewhat? Do we push for that? Knowing that the market is in a way that the workforce it has no safety nets. So we have to kind of keep them working in this pandemic, or does the health and concern of fighters overall take precedent and we should just cancel events? We need to step in somehow, and promoters need to be a little more benevolent in terms of being corporations and actually pay their contractors even when they're not working. Gary, thoughts on this? Obviously, now you have a very different worldview than me as well. Like, thoughts on this dynamic, how it should play out, and your opinion on it.
So there's a couple of things, right? Like the big time prospects, the Virgil Ortizes, the Chris Colbert of the world. I'm sure their promoters may grease them for a while, you know.
Oh, they give them stipends. They make them. Yeah. I assume as well.
What's going to stink is, like you said, the mid card guys, right? Like I said, I was going to 2 cards in San Antonio, the end of March, and then one in April. Those guys, a lot of their revenue, it comes from tickets. A lot of the money they make is based on how many tickets they sell. Well, if you have these events, you can't have any fans in them, so they can't sell any tickets. So that's going to affect their pocket. So would you rather push this off a couple of months and try to get try to make more money, or do you want to have this now for pennies on? I mean, it's not a good solution either way.
Yeah,
because
you're losing a lot of money having it in studios, not having fans, especially if, like you said, the local events, they make all of the revenue on ticket sales. The TV events, not necessarily. They can probably survive off of TV revenue alone, because that's where they make a lot of the lion's share of their revenue nowadays. These promotions, the big promotions that have TV events, it's not the gate revenue anymore. But regardless, you're still losing revenue. You're still making, like you said, pennies on the dollar comparative to a few months ago.
So, do you want to do that? Do you want to make less money, or do you want to put this off? I mean, again, these guys have bills to pay, and then it trickles down to the parking lot attendant, the concession stand, all those people who work for the venue, they're out of work too, right? Because you don't need a concession stand and a parking attendant guy and bathroom attendants and security guards if there's only going to be 50 people there. You know what I'm saying? All those people are out of work, out of luck now too. And then local lodging and eateries, like those are all hurting now too. So this trickles down. I don't know what the best solution is. Look, if you held it in front of just friends and family like they did in Minnesota, right? Just entourage and immediate family. It's probably not much risk there. Just keep the old people away, kind of thing, But on a local card, you're losing all your revenue, right? Like, so how? I have an opinion on everything. I really don't know what the right answer to this is. I really don't.
Yeah, it's a scenario where I feel like there's only 2 answers, but each answer doesn't feel right, if that makes sense, right? Either you push on and have events be behind closed doors, no fans, etc., or you cancel them. Each path has its pros and cons, significant pros and cons too. And the weird part is, like, imagine if we just shut down everything, total shutdown of everything in society for a month. That's not enough. Like, that's the sad part. Like, the scientists are saying, even if we did that, it's still not enough. It's enough to slow the curve drastically, obviously. But we still have to deal with this disease. We still have to deal with the ramifications of it. And then when we go back into society, we're going to have another sort of surge of cases. That's what they're predicting as well. Like, we isolate ourselves as an entire civilization for a month, and we went back into society after that month, we're going to have a surge again. That's how it's going to happen. So it's just it's a weird time, man. Like, it is a very historic time. It is a humbling time, to say the least. And I, like you said, Gary, I don't know what the right answer is. Part of me, if I'm being quite honest, and this is just because I lean really towards the side of these workers getting paid to some degree, is that you have to push on to some degree with these events. That some of these guys, they there's no way to make a living. The government can come in and force Walmart to pay its workers. Like, that's far more likely to happen than the government to come in and force Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn and Al Heyman and Oscar De La Hoya to pay their fighters. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a degrees of difference there. And I think that ultimately this event in history is going to be one that doesn't go away for a year. It just doesn't. It's going to be around for a while, and we're going to have to figure out ways to slowly move along as a civilization while still doing the right thing, and that is a very hard line to sort of thread, if that makes sense. Gary, any other thoughts on coronavirus, the effects on the industry, effects on anything like that? I mean, we can just probably talk about this for an hour, but
No. Didn't you hear the Fed is going to inject another $1.5 trillion into the banks? So bankers will have another $1.5 trillion. So that'll fix everything.
wait, the $1.5 trillion after the $1.5 trillion, or
Just the $1.5 trillion.
okay.
That should fix everything. Now that bankers have another $1.5 trillion, that should basically
did you
all
see,
the world's problems.
did you see the graph of the stock market in regards to that $500 billion bailout and what it did?
Yeah.
It was like this, and then instantaneously, it did nothing. And that 1.5 trillion bailout to fucking Wall Street is the same amount we would need to cancel all student debt in this country. And they're just going to throw it out like that. No big deal. Done.
You could just, if you break it down, there's 209 million adults in America, 18 and over, 209 million. If it broke down $1.5 trillion, divided it equally, it'd be about $7,200 a person. I'm not suggesting this as an idea. I'm just saying it couldn't possibly work any worse. So maybe it could work better if you just gave $7,200 to every single adult in America. That could spark an economy better than, I'm not suggesting that as a good idea. I'm just saying it couldn't be any worse.
No, it would be a good idea. The crazy part is Mitt Romney is out there floating the idea. Let's give
$1,000. Yeah.
$1,000 to every adult in America. Dude, we're in an age where Mitt Romney is more to the left of Joe fucking Biden. Oh, God.
I don't want to get it, but the establishment people, Democrat, Republican, they're all basically the same. I mean, they're going to have some differences on some minor things, but basically they're all
like abortion.
Right. I mean, they got some issues.
But
one might be more lenient on gun control, but mostly the major issues, they're all going to be basically the same.
Especially economic issues.
Yeah,
economic issues.
The same on economic issues.
And it's sickening, but that could be for another podcast. Because we probably agree a lot in terms of that regard. Let's get into some news, though, Gary, because we do have some news in the boxing and MMA world, surprisingly. Not all of it's great news, but we have some news. First up, though, the Tyson Fury scandal.
This is good. I like this one.
I like this one. Riyadh Al-Samari, I believe is how you pronounce that. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. With an exclusive from the Daily Mail saying Tyson Fury's future in boxing is in serious jeopardy after explosive allegations that a member of his team offered a farmer $25,000 to lie about how he failed a drug test in 2015. Those drug tests that he got a retroactive suspension for, which I want to remind people about. Also, that this same farmer is the one that is actually was used by the Fury team in their defense. He signed, I forget the exact term, but documents of intent, so to speak. And he signed some statements, I want to say, and sent them off to UCAD back then. So, I mean, there is a connection between him and the Fury team. But this story is kind of funny to me. And also, maybe I would have a different opinion about it if I didn't have a very set negative opinion about Tyson Fury already. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't shocking news to me in regards. And plus, I never viewed his suspension as some sort of vindication of him. You know what I mean? Like, I know people view his battle with UCAD as him winning that, but the dude got a retroactive suspension for 1.5 years. He still admitted guilt, guys, by taking that suspension. That's just how it works. So, like, this isn't groundbreaking for me, if that makes sense. I know other channels, maybe other shows, this is more something that they care about, but I kind of ultimately don't care about this, if that makes sense, Gary. because my opinion about him is the same. Like, this doesn't change it. I think he's a shitbag person, and he tested positive 5 years ago, and this is not news. That he paid off somebody to sign a statement that he sold them some wild boar meat is like cool if that happened. If it doesn't, weird. But this is boxing, and PD regulation stories and sports are always kind of weird. So like this isn't out of the norm, if that makes sense. So Gary, thoughts on this? Because I'm kind of over it when I know a lot of people are still caring about this. Same with like the glove gate shit. Like I think that's just stupid.
It's when you're in a slow news cycle, you got to talk about something. So this is what we're going to talk about right now in the boxing world.
You're right. Right.
Look, I have no idea if there's smoke if there's smoke by this fire. I don't know who's telling the truth and who's lying. It's very possible Tyson Fury did pay this guy off, but he's already been punished for it. If you don't like the punishment, the punishment was lax, but he's already been punished for it. Now, if there's legal ramifications for Tyson Fury for paying this guy off, then he's got to deal with that. But as far as the boxing world, like, he's been punished for it. I don't like some guy saying that he paid me off without any evidence to support that claim. Isn't like it was when like A-Rod got suspended for a year because some guy in Miami said I sold him steroids and here are my books. Okay, but he hasn't failed any tests, so I don't know what that means. Like, you're just saying that you sold him steroids. I mean, he did, right? Like, there's people, but that doesn't mean he took the steroid. That doesn't mean he did anything.
I mean, with Fury, there was, failed drug tests.
But Fury's, there is more, but he's already been punished. I mean, look.
Yeah, you're right. It's almost like double jeopardy. Like,
yeah.
It's like he got suspended for a year and a half, and let's be honest, in today's age, that might be like more than the market standard for suspension. So I don't see an issue with it. I don't. I just maybe if I did not think Fury was a drug cheat already, if I did not think he was a bigot already, I would be like up in arms that this is news. But he's already that person to me. This isn't new. Right, back to you.
Yeah, right. He's not. You think he's a drug cheat, right? It's not like you think 2 + 2 = 4. He's a drug cheat. He admitted to it, right? So he's a drug cheat. Now, I mean, it's not like Kobe or LeBron. It's not gonna, this is a fact, right? He's a drug cheat. He admitted to it.
Yeah.
That would be enough to convict him in any court of law. He admitted to it. So.
Yeah, if someone came out and said Deontay Wilder paid me to fake some tests for him, that would be more news to me because it'd be like, it's new information. This is not new information, if that makes sense. Really. Quickly, though, Queensberry Promotions did put out a statement in regards to this, obviously saying that's not true, blah, blah, blah. WBC also said they don't believe it, blah, 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 blah. So not really surprising that that's happening. But also, I also don't think like there should be a massive change into what happened to Tyson Fury moving forward. This is from 5 years ago. He got suspended already. Like
it was literally 5 years ago. That's crazy. That's been 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's how long ago he beat Klitschko.
Yeah.
Half a decade ago.
And he's only beat one top 50 heavyweight since.
That's true. That is true. Great fight in that rematch, but you're absolutely right about that. Man, the Fury fans are going to fucking hate us.
I like Fury. I'm a Fury fan. Like, you guys know that. I think Fury is the best. Well, Usyk is, but besides, I think Fury's the best heavyweight in the world. I think he's the best heavyweight in a generation. I'm a Fury fan. But, like, let's be real. Like, he's beaten one top 50 heavyweight since Klitschko. He's probably only got 3 or 4 top 50 heavyweights. I mean, Steve Cunningham was a great cruiserweight. Do you want to call him a top 50 heavyweight? I mean, he probably was. I mean, but he's got a Chisora. He doesn't have that many good names on his resume.
Cunningham, would he be top 50? Probably. I mean, heavyweight back then, it was 2014, 13, man. Like, this wasn't like it was the booming.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Day.
It's a terrible era, right?
It was. I mean, Steve Cunningham, if he won that fight, he probably could have fought Klitschko for the title. Let's be honest. Lawrence in the chat saying people can change, Matt. Tyson is not a bad person. Look, people can absolutely change. I see no evidence that Tyson Fury has changed.
I mean, he's not a drug addict. I mean, he's a recovery.
Oh, no. Regards to that. Yeah, no, that. Absolutely. And when I say drug treat, I don't care about his cocaine use. I never judge people for taking recreational drugs. Like, even if you're a heroin addict or a meth addict, like, I don't judge you for that. Like, I may think you have issues and, like, let's get over that. Like, let's work on, but, like, I don't judge you for that. And I honestly really don't judge people for being taking steroids and shit, but it's again not news. That's what I come down to. Like, this is not new information. He got suspended. He almost bankrupted UCAD over that shit. Let's be honest. Moving on though, because I mean, I can only show on Tyson Fury for so long. Although this is from Dan Rayfield. Although the boxing schedule is fluid due to the coronavirus pandemic, middleweight world titleist Gennady Golovkin's mandatory defense against Kamil Zamarata is now penciled in for June 6th DAZN at the Forum in Inglewood. A source with knowledge of the plans told ESPN the fight has been moved from tentative dates from February 29th to then March 28th to April, May, and now June. There had been a possibility of the bout taking place in Golovkin's native Kazakhstan, but that is now off the table, the source said. One of the reasons for the most recent date move is because Triple G suffered a right calf injury training in mid-February. Gary, thoughts on the likelihood of us getting this fight, actually?
I'm 50-50. How's that? Is that optimistic 50-50?
Yeah, that is optimistic. I'm not that close. I think this is not happening. I'm also very negative about, not negative, that's probably the wrong way to frame it. I am much more the mindset that this pandemic is going to get far worse before it gets better. And we're not even close to the worst part in this country in terms of what the CDC is predicting. You know, conservative death toll of 500,000 people is the conservative estimate right now. We're not close to that yet. So that means it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. The idea that the Forum is going to hold a Triple G Zamarata event in June just doesn't seem likely. That's why I don't think we're going to be talking about boxing for a long time. Why we're going to talk about other shit, because there's not going to be boxing for a while. If this does somehow get contained and we can get along life as normal, I guess, then I'm down with the Triple G return to LA, you know, in the Forum. That makes complete sense. I've been waiting for Triple G to come back to LA for a while now, it seems. That's been his adoptive home for a while, for what, 4 or 5 years now, it seems. Maybe even longer than that, probably since the HBO days, right? So you're talking about maybe 6 years ago. Him and Loma moved to LA and they made it their home. So it's nice to see him back. But I just don't see this fight going off the way that everyone's predicting.
Again, I don't know, right? Like, I mean, June is still a ways out.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it is.
I don't know how you kind of, you know, this Coronas is unprecedented. Unprecedented. I don't know anything to compare this to. It's a new virus that we don't really know how to contain. I don't know. Maybe something comes out tomorrow and it's contained. I have no idea, right? I mean, that's not going to happen. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know when this gets fixed. Maybe June is completely reasonable. Maybe that's ridiculous. I don't know. That's why I'm totally 50-50.
Yeah. 50-50 is optimistic, though. I like that. Be optimistic, Gary. Moving on, though, boxing promoter wants to rival Dana White's UFC promotion, a.k.a. Eddie Hearn, coming for Dana White's throat, saying, and let me get to this from sportsmedia.com by Ed Dixon. Quote from Eddie Hearn: "I'm a casual fan of MMA. I don't know a lot about it. I could probably name you half a dozen fighters," Hearn told BN Sports. "But I love what they've done as a brand. I love their expansion to territories. I'm jealous." Get this part, Gary. You're going to love this. "I'm jealous because they control the sport and fighters in a way where the fighters are basically told who they're going to fight." In boxing, you have to negotiate with managers, advisors, networks. It's frustrating. I'm an MMA fan, the sport and also the business. He continues, when asked by BN if he would look to promote MMA in the future, Hearn said, quote, "Yeah, I think so. A lot of people are asking me to do it, whether it's broadcasters, organizations who would like to grow it or try to rival the UFC. It's very difficult to rival the UFC, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with all guns blazing. I don't want to go in and be number two. Being number one in that space is very, very difficult. So let me crack boxing first, and then we'll see about MMA." Gary, I have a lot of thoughts about Eddie Hearn entering the MMA space. But I want your complete casual MMA perspective on a boxing promoter like Eddie Hearn entering this space.
First, I had no idea being sports was still a thing. I didn't know that was still
Right.
around.
Good
They used to
point.
have Roy Jones Jr. cards. No, but I thought it went out of business. I don't have the channel anymore, but that's besides the point. Eddie Hearn, look, Eddie Hearn and Matchroom may get into the UFC world. I don't think Eddie Hearn's going to be running this day to day. He's going to hire UFC people, experts, people who know that space to run it. I saw on CNBC that there's still a lot of growth in that industry. Now, you guys know better than me. I think he might try to stick his foot in the pool and see how that works out, but it's not his forte, right? So, like, he's going to hire experts. I mean, Eddie's not a dumb guy. He's not going to go in this setting himself up to fail. If he's going to put money into this, you think so?
I'll keep going. I have some thoughts.
If he's going to do this, he's going to be the figurehead, but he's not going to be running it. It's going to be like Oscar with Golden Boy. It's like, yeah, it's my company, but Eric Gomez and these guys basically do everything.
All right. I have several thoughts. Okay. First off, bringing up Golden Boy. Remember Golden Boy MMA? That happened.
Did that happen? You're right.
That was a complete failure. Just want to bring that up. Not saying that that's what's going to necessarily happen to Matchroom if they do this.
Yeah, but Matchroom's a better company than Golden Boy.
No, absolutely. And let me get into it. Matchroom is lucky because if they were to enter the MMA space, the European MMA space is far more open and far more, I think, ready for growth than the North American landscape and in this market. The UFC is the monolith here. It just is. There's really no way to compete with the UFC in this market. Not happening. But in the UK, where the UFC has one or two events there, yes, absolutely. In France and Germany, and etc., in places that MMA is not necessarily the biggest thing and not like what it is in the US, I can see Matchroom going in and generating growth for the market. Absolutely. I would also recommend, if I'm Matchroom, to buy up a property. So if I'm Matchroom, I buy up like Cage Warriors. They're a European UK outfit. You know, they've been around for a very long time. They have a good stable of fighters. They have some brand recognition. I would buy them if I'm Matchroom. Trust me, Matchroom could buy them. Just buy them. Have a hostile takeover of a sizable and long tenured MMA promotion that automatically gives you people in the industry. That automatically gives you fighters to use. You know, instead of trying to just pick up random people and have Matchroom MMA. Buy up Cage Warriors. And maybe you devolve that into Matchroom MMA or whatever it may be, but buy up that property, have those contracts in place, and have those executives in place because you need them. Like I think you said it, Gary. I think Eddie Hearn is not smart enough when it comes to MMA. I think he's a smart person, obviously, but not smart enough when it comes to MMA to really be the guy running it day to day. Similar, I think he made a mistake being the guy running day-to-day operations of Matchroom US because he doesn't know the US landscape. Like that just is clearly evident. And to avoid that same mistake with a Matchroom MMA venture, don't run it. Buy a corporation like Cage Warriors and have them run it. And you just be the majority owners and investors of it, and you profit off of it. You know, and slap your name and your logo on it, and you're good to go. That's what I would do. And like I said, Europe is a open market. Yeah, you have KSW like in Poland and Eastern Europe, which does huge numbers. You have Cage Warriors, which does respectable numbers in UK and Ireland, etc. But there really isn't, you know, that monolith in the European market like there is in boxing with Matchroom. Matchroom is the monolith in the European market. It just is. In the US for MMA, UFC is the monolith. So because of that, there is some potential for growth, some potential to really enter the market and have some success. But I will say this. I don't know if it's smart to do that right now because Matchroom has opened up, like 8 different regions for their boxing department. And I think they're kind of struggling with all those markets. So to stretch yourself even more thin at this point might do yourself a greater disservice. So I would potentially hold off on that, to be quite honest. And also, if you're Eddie Hearn, you have to stop thinking that I'm going to come in and be the number one in the market. That's not going to happen. He said that almost verbatim the same thing when he entered the U.S. market for boxing, right? I'm going to come in and be the number one. I'm not going to come in and be number two. He said basically the same thing. Guess what? He's not number 1 or 2 in this market.
You don't think he's number 2 in the U.S.?
No.
Top Rank is?
Yeah.
I mean,
and then even then, Golden Boy has Canelo.
Golden Boy's got Canelo. I was gonna say, but that's it. That's it.
Yeah, but Golden Boy's enough to float you maybe to that 3rd spot too. Like Matchroom has Daniel Jacobs, Mikey Garcia, Jesse Vargas. Who else? Who are else like their U.S. names?
You're right. Tevin Farmer, Maurice Hooker. Those are lower level names. Yeah. I mean,
they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
If you don't have a pure budgetary perspective, they might be number 2.
Well, they got Triple G. That's their. I mean, that's.
Yeah, but that's a co-promotional deal with K2.
That's true.
You know, and it's as far as I'm aware, like you still have to run through K2 if you're Matchroom. They're not the lead promoter, from my understanding, for Triple G.
And Eddie's only been in the U.S. now for about a year and a half.
Yes.
I mean, to be realistic, now he had a name recognition behind him when he came from the UK, but where he's coming a year and a half is pretty good.
No, it's not.
It is.
No,
he's not number 1, obviously. That's PBC in America. But
no, he's better than the main events in the K2s of the world. Absolutely.
Thompson Promotions,
of
Solana
course.
Promotions, yeah.
Of course. But if we're grouping PBC as a monolith, even though it's not technically a promotional company, and Top Rank and Golden Boy, they're still competing with them. And Matchroom isn't supplanting these promotional companies right now. It just isn't. And that's not a bad thing. Like I said, like you can still find success in the market. You just have to be aware of what your ceiling is, right? And for MMA, there is a ceiling on what Matchroom could do. Matchroom MMA can never enter the North American market and be the number 2. That's always going to be Bellator, and number 1's always going to be UFC right now, unless they get bought out, unless you have significant changes there.
Is Strikeforce still a thing?
No.
Okay. I remember it used to be on Showtime. That's all I remember.
Strikeforce got bought out by the UFC in 2011.
Wow, really? I'm so old. That's like 10 years ago almost. Okay.
2015 maybe, but I think it's 2011. I could be wrong about it. No. Might be 2013. 2011 was the Fox deal.
Say 2013. That makes me feel a little less stupid, right?
2013.
2011 is almost a decade ago. Can he buy Bellator? Can he team up?
Viacom is the majority owners of Bellator. Yeah, our UK listeners, Viacom is a massive fucking company.
It's MTV. I mean, I guess MTV is not that big, but it's like it's cable television basically.
Viacom owns a lot of TV networks in the US. They're a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're one of the big TV corporations. Like you talk about like CBS, Viacom. You're talking about
News Corp, CBS. There's 5 companies in America that basically own media.
Everything.
And they're one of them. Yeah.
Yes. So they're not going to buy out from Viacom. That's not happening.
I didn't know it was owned by Viacom. I don't know.
Viacom, I want to say, has some of their holdings on Showtime as well. I forget what I'll look into that again before I start talking about it. But I remember there was a connection between Viacom, CBS, and Showtime, and Bellator could end up on Showtime. That's always been the thought process. But moving on. Adrian Broner, not really news, but Adrian Broner arrested for a DUI in Miami Beach. Also, via TMZ, I think there's a new angle for the Javante Davis altercation with his baby mother. So if you want some of that type of news, guys, have fun. Gary, any thoughts?
This is like Kovalev now. This is just no. I mean, it's not even surprising anymore. Like, I hope he gets his life together.
I do too. The dude has kids. Dude's, has a brand, has a career. Like, come on, man. Please, for the love of God, Get your shit together. Let's talk a little bit about the fights that happened on Friday. Brandon Lee defeating Camilo Prieto. Brian Norman Jr. defeating Flavio Rodriguez. Alejandro Guerrero defeating Jose Angulo. And that's about all I can kind of remember, to be quite honest. And I don't even remember those that well.
There was the first scrap, which was two guys I never heard of, but it was a good scrap. The guy with Ariam or whatever his name was got knocked down twice early and then came back and dominated the fight from there on out. It was a good fight. Brandon Lee. We'll start with Brandon Lee.
I mean, obviously the kid's talented, right? But holy shit, I am so done with this level of competition.
It's tough because he doesn't have any promotional deal, does he?
No.
He came up, he fought on a club show in Houston like a year and a half ago. I mean, this guy has really kind of burst onto the scene in the last 6 months on the showbox cards. Look, the kid obviously has a lot of talent. He's really cool under pressure. He doesn't come out of his game. I think there's a future for him. How high is that future? I have no idea. He needs to get a promotional deal, right? He's not Devin Haney. With Devin Haney went that long without promotional deals just because of his personality and his ability to sell. Brandon Lee needs to get with a promoter and then take the necessary steps up. His talent's there. I think he's a quintessential boxer puncher. He's patient. He works behind his jab. And then he's got, again, his power looks good, but a lot of people's power look good at this level. Will it translate at the highest level? Who knows?
Is he with Slate of Promotions? Because this was a Slate of Promotions event. He's
no, because his last card was on a Thompson's card. Like, I don't know, like, his last fight was on a Thompson Promotions card.
Is he advised by Al Heyman at all? Do we know? It's hard to tell sometimes. I don't know. You would wish he's with PBC, obviously, because he's a welterweight. That division stacked with PBC talent. That's who I would want to get with in some fashion. I would sign an advising deal with Al Heyman, absolutely. If I'm Brandon Lee, the only other route you would do is maybe Top Rank, but you're always in the predicament that Crawford's in right now. So, like, why would you go to that side of the street that has less options? Because he is talented. He's not a Joey Spencer, who we talk about often, right? Like, I think Brandon Lee has a high ceiling. I think he could be a top 10 player at some point. Maybe not a champion. I don't know yet. Obviously, it's hard to tell. But the skills are there. The power's there. I think he has a chin. It hasn't really been tested yet, but I think he has one, if I'm being honest. He could be a player. He might be one of those guys we talk about with the Jared Enos and the Virgil Ortiz and that next crop of welterweight talent that's going to come in to the top 15 soon. Mike in the chat is saying that Cameron Duncan is his manager. So
I didn't know he was still relevant.
He isn't.
Yeah. I mean,
Cameron Duncan's a legend. Legendary manager in this game, but I'm not saying get away from that, but I'm just saying that might hold you up in some fashion.
If he signed with him, he might be obligated to him. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure he doesn't have the money to buy himself out of the contract. He's 20 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure he doesn't have the means to buy, unless someone else wants to do it for him. Right? Al Heyman's like, I'll buy you out of that. I don't know.
Mike reminded me that he also has Jared Enos. Yeah, there's an issue there. There's a thread line of great prospects not getting good fights.
At this point, though, if I said Enos first, Brandon Lee, you'd have to take Enos, right?
Yeah, I think he has more gears at this point. But, Brandon Lee's clearly the heavier hitter of the two.
Yeah, for sure. But Lee is so patient and so calm. I want to see what happens when you put a pressure fighter on him. The guy he fought, once he felt Lee's power, he was in survival mode. That was it, right? And then Lee finally got him out with the body shot, and then he threw on a bunch of, a barrage of shots that ended it. But, he's so calm and so patient. What happens when you press him, right? Does he come unglued? I don't know. I have no idea. But, we need to find out eventually what we have here.
I think someone's in the chat that he's a 140-pounder. He is technically, but this fight wasn't a 140-pound fight.
No, but the goal was to have him, as he steps up, is to be a 140-pounder. But I know this was not 140.
Yeah, this was technically a 147-pound fight. Even though they didn't weigh in 147 pounds, this was technically a welterweight fight. But he's going to move up. All junior welterweights move up.
He's 20 years old. The money's at 147. He's gonna be a welterweight.
Like most people do, they want to collect the belt at 140 to have some leverage to when they go to 147.
But you look at guys like Ricky Hatton, Pernell Whitaker, Floyd Mayweather. They could have fought their entire career at 140. They could have made that weight really comfortably. But the money's at 147. So where am I going to go? 147.
Absolutely. There's no reason not to be quite honest, especially when that weight difference isn't that drastic. And the welterweights in this age aren't like giants. Like, when we talk about like junior middleweights being massive guys for the division, right? Super middleweights right now are massive for the division. Like, all those guys can move up to 175 tomorrow and compete. 140 pounders are pretty big guys that can automatically just move up to 147. Like, that's just how it is. And 147 pounders are kind of usually natural 147 pounders. Just being quite honest, especially how it usually works. You have guys moving from 135 to 147. That's usually how it ends up.
Mosley did it directly. I think he took one tune-up fight at like a catchweight, like 142 or 144, and then fought De La Hoya. Mosley never fought at 140.
Well, Balco Mosley, man, that was
big then. Yeah,
that was a different Mosley back then, man.
Whatever. Yeah.
Balco Mosley, top 10 all time.
But I mean, Mosley was like the biggest lightweight you ever saw, right? And it was fast. I mean, he was, besides Duran, maybe the best lightweight I ever saw. It was just he had a brief run there, and then he went straight up to 47. And then he was like a normal size welterweight. It's like, how is this guy shrinking down to 35? But I'm sure Balco helped him with that too.
Agreed. Gary, that's it for boxing topics. I'm going to talk about the UFC events. I don't know if you want to stay on and just act like a casual, or if you want to log off. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to distract when the grown-ups are talking about UFC because I don't, I don't have anything to add.
Gary, you can give your sign off before I break down UFC 248 and UFC Brasilia.
Yeah, Matt's going to do the UFC talk. Again, let us know if there's anything you want us to cover. If there's anything you want Matt and I to debate, let Matt know. Santiago wants to do a top 20 heavyweights of all time. I'm down. Okay. But find me on all of social media, 3D Boxing blog. If there's any boxing news, we'll try to keep you guys up to date. From Texas to the world, thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Gary. We're going to see you sometime later, whenever that is. And guys, let's talk about UFC 248. Israel Adesanya defeating Yoel Romero. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because the fight was really boring and not a lot happened. Not a lot to analyze there. You had Yoel Romero doing literally nothing, trying to make Adesanya overcommit so he can counter him with that left hand out of the southpaw position. And Adesanya wasn't committing. And he was throwing feints, throwing leg kicks, beating him up to the leg, and just coasted to a decision. And I think it's pretty clear that, and it's clear in hindsight that these guys probably would not have given us a great fight. That this was two counter strikers in theory, even though Yoel Romero is a great wrestler, he doesn't really use his wrestling as much. And Adesanya actually, I think, countered his wrestling quite well in this fight. But in terms of the striking, they're counter strikers, and we got them kind of staring at each other. And that can happen. And I think I should have been far more aware that that was a possibility. Let's be honest, guys. But let's talk about the fight that is, briefly though, before I get to Zhang Yuana. Adesanya Costa next. Cannot wait for that fight. I think that fight's going to be far more exciting because Costa will come forward. He will throw. He will overcommit. And we're going to see if Adesanya can really handle that power, that pressure. I think he will, but man, that is going to be a tough fight for Adesanya. I don't see that not being a tough fight for him. But co-main event, really Zhang defeating Joanna Jędrzejczyk via split decision, and perhaps one of the greatest fights of all time. It is without a doubt the greatest women's MMA fight of all time. Nothing comes close to it. Nothing. This is it. We talk about Jędrzejczyk Andrade or Rousey Take 2, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey. We're talking about certain fights, like it just doesn't come close. Even like Cyborg Nunez, which was one of the greatest 1-minute fights of all time. It doesn't come close to a 5-round fucking war, and that's what this was. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's head was deformed by the end of this fight. That's how significant it was. If you haven't seen her Instagram video, I think it was a few days ago, sort of giving an update. I mean, she is still bruised significantly. This was insane. Like, you had Jędrzejczyk, I think, doing exactly what she needed to do, fighting at range, throwing the jab consistently, using her kicks in a really efficient way, landing them consistently. And Zhang was just landing those bombs. I mean, anytime they got that in that mid-range and Zhang was able to land those counter hooks, mid-combination to Jędrzejczyk, she was landing the damaging blows. I thought she won slightly, but oh my God, I have no issue with anyone picking Jędrzejczyk to win this fight. This fight was amazing. And also one of those fights I'm highly concerned about their health going forward. This seems like a Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald sort of fight where both people are forever changed by the punishment they endured in that 25 minutes. This seems like one of those. I hope it's not, but it's just a concern I have because it was one of those fights. This was insane. Zhang's boxing timing and mid-combination work was fantastic. I mean, I was blown away by this. Scott Brown, to bring up another great women's fight, Tate, last-minute win versus Holm after losing the fight was really good. It was good, but not close to this at all. At all, in my opinion. Belle Renette, I believe is how you pronounce that. If I mispronounce it, I apologize about that. Kind of off topic, but I see Zhang versus Valentina fighting mid 2021 or 2022. I do as well. I think the UFC is going to push for that because I don't think Valentina has a lot of opponents. But Zhang is not a big fighter. Like, she's not tall at all. Like, I think I don't see Zhang really being able to compete size-wise with Valentina. Technique-wise, I think she could actually beat or at least be the better fighter than Valentina. But that size and reach separation would be, I think, far too much for them or for her to get over. I don't see that happening or see that happening to where Zhang is going to be competitive in it. The size difference is just a little bit too much. Unless Zhang can really get under that jab, get within the range of Valentina consistently, then it becomes a drastically different fight. But I don't think Valentina Shevchenko is going to let that happen. She's too talented to let Zhang get inside her space, in my opinion. I don't see that. Benio Dariush defeating Draco Close via KO in the second round. That was a really good back and forth fight. And Neil Magny defeating Jinglang Li. I believe that's how I pronounce that. Sorry if I mispronounced that. The unanimous decision, real dominant fight. Alex Oliveira defeating Max Griffin via split decision. Sean O'Malley with this comeback fight, winning in the first round via KO. It looked fantastic. Mark Madsen picked up a win. And that's about it from what I kind of remember and care to talk about. Also, this last weekend obviously was the last UFC card we're going to have, at least for some time, it seems. Kevin Lee versus Alex Oliveira. Sorry, not Alex Oliveira. Charles Oliveira in Brasilia, Brazil. And Charles Oliveira just dominated Kevin Lee. I think obviously an element of that is due to him missing weight, speaking of Kevin Lee, but I just don't think he is that good as we want him to be quite honest. I mean, I love Kevin Lee. I think he's a fantastic fighter. I think he's a fantastic human being, but he is clearly not top 5 material. He's a guy that will slip from the top 15 to that, bottom half of the top 10 at times at lightweight, but he's never going to be a guy that can actually win the title. It's just not happening. And Charles Oliveira, pressured him. His Muay Thai looked on point. I thought his ability to throw combinations, it wasn't surprising because Charles Oliveira's always had really good striking, in my opinion, relative to his jiu-jitsu, but he was utterly dominant in this fight in terms of the striking. Kevin Lee had no idea what to do with it. And also Kevin Lee allowed himself to be pressured from the get-go. And you just cannot do that. You can't. I saw some people jumping in late talking about Tyron Woodley. I'll just run it back again because I think some people probably missed it. In regards to that fight, obviously 3 people are in line for it. Rafael dos Anjos is in line for it. Also, Gilbert Burns is in line for it. And obviously, Colby Covington has been out there making his case for it. And I think Tyron Woodley would probably want that fight right now with him coming in on short notice. But who knows what happens to that? Obviously, when I know about that, I will let all of you guys know about that. But guys, that's probably going to be it for today's show. I'll be back later this week for sure with some sort of content, whether it be with Anthony Walker, with an off-brand podcast, whether it be with Gary talking about politics or something. I don't know. Whether we have significant fight updates, obviously that will bring us back and do a show. But guys, I think that's going to be it for this one. Have a great day, great evening, great night, wherever you are. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. And what else? Find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, all social media platforms right there. You guys know where to find me. And stay safe out there. Wash your hands. Don't go out in public. Be a responsible citizen of the world, please. This is not a time to mess around. Peace, guys.